I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ms. Steve, would you give us a roll call, please? Okay, I'm sorry I haven't met you. So.
My name is Adriana.
Adriana?
I'm moving to a different position, so
Oh, are you?
Adriana will now be at your meetings.
Okay.
She doesn't like this anymore.
What
Welcome.
position is that?
Now, this is your first time, right?
Attending the
At
meeting,
this
yes.
meeting.
Yeah, okay.
She's been with us for a couple of years, but I'm gonna be a building inspector.
Really? You're
Good
gonna
for
be
you.
the what?
I'm gonna be a building inspector.
Oh,
Well,
Does that mean you're adding one to the list, or does that mean you're replacing one?
There'll be two of us.
Nice. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
All right, then Adriana?
Yes.
Then we'll let you do the roll call.
Chairperson Lilly,
Here.
Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Stanfield. Here. And Schnittke.
Here.
Jackie.
Here.
Mr. Allen.
Here.
Misty Myler. And Adriana Pelayo.
Last name is,
Pelayo.
how do you spell it?
P-E-L-A-Y-O.
They like you.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. Did everyone have an opportunity to look over the meeting minutes of the meeting on the 24th of March?
Yes.
In the packet, did you make the changes I
I
suggested?
did not reprint them, but I did make the changes here.
Anyone else have any changes or corrections they'd like to make? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, we'll go to the next item here. We have consent agenda. And we have a consent agenda on this meeting because we are canceling the meeting on the, what did I say, 24th?
Yeah,
24th?
I think that's correct.
Yeah, and so we're pulling this consent agenda ahead because we had no other items,
We have no applications.
no applications. So anyway, we're doing it in this meeting. Have all of you had a chance to look over the items that are on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
Any questions, concern, discussion? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move we approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Who's second?
All right. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to go into the discussion items, so we'll turn the time to you, Travis.
All right, the discussion on the artificial turf, we kind of talked about this before. The mayor would still like to keep the no permits required for residential uses and possibly just fall back on the building codes for any commercial buildings that might come up that want to use artificial turf. Also updated concerns or changes on here about earthen berms that we wanted to remove. Section A, subsection 2.
Would you just explain to us why they want that eliminated?
It was a request from Audrey, because in our buffer zones, we didn't like the use of earthen berms that could be up to 3 foot tall instead of use a privacy fence or a setback.
Dirt. Burn of dirt.
Yeah.
And
Not very appealing, and who's gonna take care of it? I think it's what we kind of discussed.
Difficult to mow.
yeah, so you can see where it's been struck out in A subsection 2, or earthen berm as substitute, and then subsection B again, the description of an earthen berm. I provided a document in here about, there was a request to remove the requirement for a 3-gallon tank. 3-gallon shrub. And the research that I come up with is that it's an optimal size for developers, so they can be done. It's the best chance for like a shrub to be able to take hold. It's mature enough, it's hardy enough, and it is a larger size, and you can find them pretty common around some greenhouses around here. But it gives the best chance for it to take hold by the time the developer or their contractor is done with the landscaping of the parking lot. And be honest, we'll have to come back, we'll do a walkthrough at the end of the development. And then if we approve it, then they're done, they're out of town, they're done. And this is the best chance to make sure that it's gonna take hold. It's still up to the owner, or if it's a dedicated right of way, it falls back on the city to maintain that or replace that if it fails. But that's a good reason why to maintain a 3-gallon size. Subsection, I think it was C4. It's 3 pages in, where it says number 4 at the top of the page.
You guys put yours all out?
Misty prints it off for me.
I thought I had mine. You give one to Danny.
And he normally does his electronically.
Actually, I told you when
Yeah, I'll go make you one.
I became the chairman, I wanted to have a good copy, so. Okay, so you have shrub shall not be less than 3-gallon size when
Yeah,
planted.
one planted, so we'll maintain that.
Okay.
And is this strictly for subdivisions, or is this for anybody in town putting in new shrubbery in their yard?
Well, it says at the beginning, Title 11, subsection 9.3, landscaping requirements for certain yard areas and off-street parking and other vehicular use areas. So this would cover parking lots in like subdivisions, planned unit developments, or even commercial parks, what they like to call it. The parking lots there. Now, this is landscaping in general for any required parking.
So this is not a requirement for a residential.
No. This is for new development.
It's too big. And then it's just a description of why.
And then you have all of the artificial turf.
All the artificial turf.
I was curious about, you have all of these requirements for how it ought to be installed.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a permit, then there's no way to guarantee that all of this stuff will be done.
Well, that's,
You have to rely on a neighbor or somebody.
yeah, and that's kind of how we do a lot of things too.
Doesn't make it right.
Well, the more we put in there, and we'll kind of get to this too during the fencing stuff later on, is that if you do it before it and require a permit, then you gotta apply that evenly. I gotta set up an OpenGov. I like to put at least $25, $35 charge on it. Even though I get paid a salary, then that covers the revenue of like Misty covering it, or an assistant who's an hourly and not a salary that has to kind of manage that, manage the intake, monitor it, and go back and do like a final inspection to say, hey, they called me, it's final inspection, take a picture of it. This is what it looked like when we give them the thumbs up, stuff like that. So there is some time involved. We do have the code in place. If it gets out of control, we can start enforcing it more as an afterthought than a pre-thought. I prefer, like in fencing, I prefer the application so I can talk to the applicant and say, hey, this is what the code says. This, and show them a diagram from our specifications. This is where we measure setbacks from. These are safety sight lines and triangles. And that's why you can't have a 6-foot fence right up to the road or something like that. And you'd be surprised how I have to explain that to experienced contractors. Sometimes they're like, well, we're gonna do this till someone says something. And then, yeah, we catch them that way. But, yeah, it's there in case, The other thing, it's there in case whatever they do with their artificial turf damages our city property. If it starts sidewalks from unsettling because they're not retaining the stormwater on site, stuff like that. Then we can go in and say, okay, this is the problem. We put in our artificial turf. It doesn't look like it has good drainage or a good base underneath it. And that's why your stormwater's running down over on this part of the sidewalk and then running down the infiltrator and making your sidewalk settle uneven. So yeah, it is written to be more of an afterthought than a pre-thought, but that's kind of the point, to not require a permit for it. Another thing is that we had to go in and change, you can see on this on the first page, on the second page, we had to change that just a little bit with a little more right there and take out carpeting. That's the closest description we have to artificial turf. If you looked at the document, it starts at 1193, go to the second page on it. Oh, it's just a little touch of yellow right there. So we did have to change that to allow it, or it didn't allow it. And then, yeah, our mayor, that's what he does for a living. So he analyzes the crap out of it and writes a lot of code. I can't take credit for this because he reviewed like the operational and safety standards and maintenance and the life. But I'm kind of like the paralegal that takes his analyzation and then reformats it so it'll fit into the format that we use in our city code.
Well, we can still decide as a commission whether or not we support it.
Yes,
You know,
that's part of the
It's
discussion.
up to him. But I don't know what your feeling is.
Well, I don't think what you're talking about as far as artificial turf.
Could be a whole yard. I mean,
Or is it just like just a little entryway, put a little slab of turf down, or?
Well, it's kind of treated like grass. So we do have in our zoning regulations, a 60-40 rule that you gotta still maintain. You can only cover 40% of the lot with impervious surfaces like the footprint of your house, garage, driveway, sidewalks, patio covers, stuff like that, or another like accessory structure in the yard, like a tool shed. So the rest of that still has to be grass, and you still have to maintain stormwater on site. So if you build it to the recommendations we put in our code with proper base and be able to be permeable,
Right.
then the stormwater that hits your yard should stay on your yard still.
This is only for commercial. You're not governing residential.
We're not governing residential, no.
So
We're,
they can do whatever the heck they want. All we're doing is, we're putting this out there, but it doesn't do anything for, if I want to put it in my house. You can't come and tell me what to do because we haven't done anything.
yeah,
We're not offering to do anything to regulate how they do it and do it correctly. So, you can fall back to, they can put down whatever the heck they want. And unless they have problems or someone reports something, nothing's gonna happen.
yeah. We're not gonna require additional approval from.
Well, the commercial doesn't require 60-40 coverage.
Yeah, commercial doesn't require 60-40 coverage.
So,
It could fall under like the building code of, fire regulations saying you can't have a rubberized mat in this area. It has to be ventilated, or can't have it around.
well, get
500.
turf's gonna, it's not fired. Maybe
Yeah.
it's already fired.
Yeah,
But I mean, you guys do whatever you want. But I think this is just throwing crap on the winds because you can't do anything. You're not gonna, a commercial project's gonna pull a permit. You guys can check the base, you can check that. But on residential, permit, that's why. So why even talk about residential? And not trying to be totally negative.
yeah.
They had pretty piss poor attitude about our committee. But not against you guys personally, just I think we waste our time. Because city council does whatever the hell they want. So, but in reference to turf,
Mhm.
I think turf's a great idea. I think it should be regulated, it should be permitted, that they do it correctly. Because it does look nice if it's done correctly, and it does maintain and help us with water, which we're going to get deeper and deeper in trouble with. You know, because we're gonna have less and less of it. And rightly so, because we need the farmers to use the water to be able to feed us. So, I mean, turf, I think, is a great incentive. And for commercial, I think it's a fantastic incentive, because it does, if they buy the good stuff, it does look good. And it doesn't have the maintenance, you don't have to mow it, you don't have to water it. So, there's nice things to it. To me, I think unless we require permitting at the residential level, we're just wasting paper and wasting code, personally.
Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Well, I had a thought on this particular page that talks about the pros and cons of it.
Lifespan, you have about 65 lifespan.
Yeah. On the, it would be page 3, because it's front and back, but on page 3, it talks about odor issues. And I've never thought about that before. And if you have someone who has a couple of large dogs, because you are allowed to have large dogs, you are allowed to have 2 in the city, and they don't go back and maintain, you're gonna have an odor issue, whether it be from ammonia or whether it be from solid waste. That's an issue for neighbors to have to deal with.
Yeah, and we do have code and zoning regulations. Odors do fall under what is defined as a nuisance. With enough observation, would probably go through me, because it'd be a zoning regulation and not through like the main code enforcement guy that works on grass and parking and stuff like that, and works in tandem with the police department. But yeah, I could address that through our ordinance as a nuisance and be able to use the penalty for that way if it becomes a problem.
If you don't have a code to make people do it correctly, how can you enforce that, Travis? I mean, just because it's a nuisance,
Yeah.
okay, but you've allowed someone to do something wrong to start off with.
Mhm.
And now you're coming back and say, rip that son of a gun up and do it the right way, or plant grass in there.
Well, the way the
Instead
penalty,
of making them pay a $25 fee or a $35 fee up front and giving them guidelines.
yeah, this is the way the mayor wanted to run it.
And
Maybe he hasn't thought about it in this direction.
I don't think he cares.
I believe he cares.
I don't think he cares about that.
I think we're gonna talk a little bit more about this when we get into the fencing. I noticed when I sent out the letter to the commissioners about fencing that changes are made in the fencing to avoid civil suits over property or property disputes. This is kind of the same thing. We're kind of coming in and enforcing it as a penalty. And our penalty is written that it's a misdemeanor charge for every day that's out of compliance from the time we warn them and give them notice and certified mail. And usually I'm running about 97% when I have a complaint that I have to address. It's just a phone call usually. I'm from the city. We have a report that this is the issue. Please fix this issue. And then you follow up another. 97% of the issues are made with a phone call. The other 3%, they last a while. Like, you just barely got a guy that came into compliance with his fence. And he took it serious when I said, your fencing permit is good for a whole year. And I called him, it was 350 days on my notification. And he finally cut the front fence down. It was 6-foot fence all the way around. And you can only have a 3-foot fence that's non-visual in the front yard. He finally complied 10 days before I really had to get serious. But like I said, I don't go in and threaten it. We do have a procedure. We try to make contact and have discussion. And if they're making some kind of progress, we don't cite them because it does cost the city money to go into this. And every time, as soon as we file that citation with the court, it's out of our hands. It's up to a judge from there to determine what's fair for punishment, no matter how we write the code, actually.
But if we, and I'm just gonna keep going back to this, and then I promise I'll shut up after this one. But on this issue, but if we have them pull a permit, we can give them guidance. If we don't have them pull a permit, they do the soil prep wrong, and it doesn't drain, then they're gonna have to tear that whole thing up. It's gonna cost them thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
Say they do a front yard, it's
Yeah.
gonna cost them thousands of dollars, plus the headache that it's gonna create their neighbors, the city, instead of a $25 or $35 application fee up front.
For-
That's my issue, is it's not that we're trying to oversee it or trying to push our agenda. It's, if they do it wrong, it's going to cost them thousands of dollars in the end, which to me, as a committee, we're doing our neighbors wrong.
Mhm.
Even if it's a $10 permit fee.
Yeah, I mean, just something so we
something
give
to make
them
them
that.
come in and have personal contact with you, so you can explain it all to them.
Well, they're not guaranteed personal contact with me. So like our fencing permit or our sign permit, it's all available online. You can make your payment online. All through the application, we cite our code. And we've had suggestions to go in and do some diagrams, just like our building permit shows an example of a site plan. To go in and show, okay, if you're gonna do this, you gotta, and maybe show an example of how water drains, you know. It's obvious water goes downhill, but you'd have to maintain it, so you might have to berm up the edges and be able to penetrate. So it's not guaranteed that they're gonna get personal contact, but it is guaranteed that they might get a little more education out of it by going through the permit where they're forced to read something or at least look at it to go to the next drop down. And that's kind of how like our sign permit works and also our
And
fencing.
I'm good with that, Travis.
Mhm.
I think that's my issue is we're requiring it for commercial, which, let's get real, 9 out of 10 commercial general contractors are gonna hire someone that knows how to do it. A homeowner's, 9 out of 10 is probably gonna, well, that's pretty easy to do. I mean, all you have to do is do this,
And if
You
you're
would
gonna buy
see
the
them
cheap
together.
kind, it doesn't last very long, because that's what they're good for.
Yeah, that's what they want to spend.
or they don't, and they don't know. I mean, there's, like I said, we've done it as our contract, our construction company's done
Mhm.
it. And it takes time, it takes
Yeah, well,
knowledge to read and understand those diagrams. It can
mean-
be done.
yeah, well, like whenever we do a change on a building permit, we have a list of contractors that are common applicants. We send that out and I'm not trying to say we too much here because that's not my department anymore, but we do try to educate on any changes. Once this goes in the code, since it's not a required permit, if I do get any personal calls, I'll take them and I'll say, yeah, this is the section where we put that. These are the requirements. No, there's not a permit. At least have it permeable with the engineered base, and by engineered base means it's got to maintain it and be able to soak it in, you know. We didn't get as technical on this section as there is in some other sections, like when you have to do, when developers have to design an infiltrator, or if they have to design a retention pond, they have to go and look at what our annual rainfall is, yada, 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 over so many square feet, and they have to design that infiltrator or that retention pond to be able to absorb enough groundwater over a certain much time and maintain it on the property. So the way it's written right now, it saves me from having to do it right as a permit approval right up front. And if they do come to us, we can say, yeah, this is the section, please do this, please do that. But again, that's please. And yes, I understand that if they do it wrong and then we go in and threaten to hit them with a penalty for every day that they're out of compliance. That's not fair, but if I talk to them and they say, okay, if you can get your contractor to come back, pull it up and make it permeable, or how can we measure some progress to becoming compliant?
It's still costing them money.
It's still costing them money. It costs money for anybody to do any improvement on their house.
It does, but why do it twice?
Yeah.
So, I guess, let me ask you this, and I said I'd shut up and I haven't.
Okay.
So what are we trying to do with this? Accept the way it's written? Are we trying to
Well,
adjust code that we wanted to have?
well, what I'd like to get from the commission today is to, let's say this is sufficient enough that I can go and do a public notice on it, so we can schedule it for a hearing in May.
That means as it's written, and if we disagree with how it's written, then we want to have it rewritten the way we want it, and then send it forward.
And I see where you're coming from with us doing stuff like, maybe I'm wrong, but those 10 little row houses or apartments or whatever they're called, that's on.
Large mistakes.
If we would have had something maybe different written, would they have brought the sidewalk out completely to the
Well,
road?
they have done that on their own.
No, but we had to go to them. I thought you said you had to. You had them take out the blacktop,
We took out the blacktop, but I didn't have to go to them for them to finish extending the sidewalk.
but even
Right.
that, blacktop, we were just talking about, that's expensive. If they'd have known up front that you cannot do that, you have, I mean, what's $35 to
Well-
or somebody?
The person that did that did not sign a development agreement for that planned unit development. It was sold to him, and it was against our code. You're supposed to retain sole ownership of the property until at least the development agreement is completed. He bought that under the pretense that it was all set up for him, and that he didn't realize that the development agreement ran with the land, and the property should have been sold until the development agreement had been completed. So yeah, that owner put in pavement thinking that he can do whatever he wanted when that wasn't an approved part of that planned unit development. The concept and the layout and the plat of that was agreed upon by the original developer that passed it down through another developer when they shouldn't have been doing that. And that's why.
Are there 3 owners that bought into that instead of just one?
Yeah, it started with one, and he sold that project to another. That second developer, contractor, took out of it what he wanted to. He wanted to develop the single-family residence on the east side of that development. And then the other one wanted to buy the apartments and rent them out, and be a landlord and rent them out that way.
I
And
thought
that,
you had one who bought 2 larger units on the ends of the connecting ones,
yeah,
not the single family. And then you had another one that bought the interior ones.
yeah.
They're all the
And so
exact
we
same
have a whole
size.
lot of owners here.
They're all the exact same size.
Good location, 2 outside ones and then
Yeah,
2.
but they're all the same square footage. Technically, everything south of the sidewalk is the city right away.
Yeah, there's a strange right
That
away
road
there.
right there goes like this. So everything south of that sidewalk is city right away. It's
Interesting.
not part of their property, that's why they weren't allowed to asphalt it.
Well, and I'm glad they had to take the asphalt out anyway, but I'm just saying that if it costs a few dollars, or if we have to write in there that if you change hands 2 or 3 times, maybe you should be the one that comes to do this,
Mhm.
because it didn't have to cost a lot of money, plus it was absolutely,
The only card we're allowed to hold on the like planned unit development when they go and do something like that, that is part of the application for the planned unit development. It's written specifically into their development agreement. And the only card that we have to hold is that we get to hold all the certificates of occupancy when they go to apply for it. If they haven't got a letter of acceptance yet because they haven't completed their development agreement, then we hold the certificate of occupancy no matter who owns the property. And that spurred the new owner to go back to the developer and say, hey, I can't get a CO. Why? You sold me this project saying it's all good to go when it wasn't. And the development agreement ran with the land from next owner to the next owner. And that's how it's written in our code, that the development agreements run with the land. So I can't help that the original developer misrepresented the project, or the second developer misrepresented the project, or he took out of it what he wanted and then passed it on to the third guy. The third guy got stuck holding the bag when he come to us asking for COs. I said, no, you haven't done this, you haven't maintained your stormwater. He had a lot of issues
Oh, yeah.
that we made him go in and fix. And that still is a private lane. And so after we give him approval and start issuing COs, that wasn't gonna get fixed. It was just gonna flood out the neighbor next door as well. So that's the only thing that we can legally hold. We can't hold building permits, we can hold the COs. We can go through, but when they say, okay, I'm ready, we schedule a walkthrough with every department head, and I make a little list, a to-do list for them. And until that is completed, they don't get a letter of acceptance from me saying that that punch list is complete and that we can start issuing COs.
All right.
I have another
Yes,
question
please.
on this, on the page that's all yellow.
Mhm.
You can look at winter conditions. A, snow and ice management methods shall be identified. Describe that, explain that to me. Identify to whom,
And now,
how, what.
I mean, if you do it as grass, snow and ice should be just,
No, this is under the
Oh,
artificial turf.
I know, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you install it like you do grass,
Mhm.
then snow and ice should just
It just
be on there just like you would if you had
dissipates.
Kentucky bluegrass there.
Well, we can add to that and say snow and ice management method which shall be as to manufacturer's specifications or requirements.
I don't think we need to have that at all,
You don't need
to be
to
personal.
cross the whole thing out is what you're saying.
That's my thought.
Because normally on artificial turf, you can't shovel it because the shovel tears it up.
Right,
So you can't maintain it with ice and snow on it.
With ice and snow on it. And
So you
that's-
guys should just let it sit there. Like your grass, you shouldn't shovel that with ice and snow on it, right?
That's right.
Because it tears it up.
too.
Is that what you were getting
Yeah.
at? Sorry.
and then B says turf shall be maintained to reduce slip hazards.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do? Go
well,
out there and put ice melt on it? I mean, what's that gonna do to the plastic?
I think the ice melt is your best option because you can't run a little propane torch out there and melt it. Because you'll melt the turf with
If
it.
we're allowing individuals to do their yard 40% or whatever the percentage is, you can't pour that much ice melt every time the snow falls.
Well, that's,
Why would you?
Yeah, exactly.
You just
Do
let
you
the
wanna
snow
let
build up.
salt?
that's how you do it
I don't
for
think
grass.
this is enforceable.
You don't think this is enforceable
Agree? Don't
Yeah.
agree.
I agree with that.
for winter conditions?
Winter conditions. I don't think we need to address winter conditions.
Okay, we can cross
Personal
that out.
property maintained by homeowners insurance. Right?
Well,
On residential, it's personal property, or it's yours personally. You have homeowners insurance, which has liability for any hazards that happen on the property.
or any accidents that happen on your property.
Yeah.
Yes, so why are we even addressing this?
And it's just a section that the mayor put in there. I think he was just thoroughly going through it. If we want to cross this out, we can take it back and see what he says. If he wants to do like a suggestion I made, follow the manufacturer's recommendation. And they might just say, wait for it to fail.
Yeah, I don't,
I think this
I
is,
think that item 3, winter conditions, should just go away.
yeah, I mean, it could be just a pro or a con of getting turf. Yeah, if you get turf and it snows on it, you're gonna have to live with that snow till spring.
But you do that with
The
But
grass.
you do that with
I'll
grass
do
too.
that with grass anyway.
All right, I'll make this note, we'll cross it out. I talked to the mayor. If he has any issues with it, I will contact all the commissioners by email. And we can put in discussion in it that way before we do a final draft and post it for public notification. We'd probably have to have this done by, when do we gotta have fees and stuff in for next hearing? Probably April 8th. About April 28th. So that'll be a task for me to complete, check back with this and then check back with you.
I don't think it's happening.
I think we ought to address what Jim's brought up about whether or not we ought to have a permit.
Well, I was gonna say, but, the permit thing, I'm a fence rider. Okay, I mean.
We're getting talk about fences in a minute.
Yeah, no pun intended. Are we running an HOA here? Or are we gonna just, it says here, number 3, G3. Residential installations remain subject to all applicable building, fire, drainage, and nuisance and property maintenance codes. It's good written down here, but Joe Blow out there who wants to do, has no idea what those codes are. How do we get that out to the people without the permit? But at the same time, why do we have to permit everybody who wants to do an improvement to their yard? So,
We have to pull permits to do a fence.
For now.
That's next.
If it's over 7 feet,
If it's over 7 feet, it falls under the building code, yes.
it has to have
But-
a permit.
so
Has to have a
that's.
building-
So, no, and I don't disagree with you. My
No
thing
permit
is
for a
if
fence
it's,
under 7.
if it's a few
We'll get
dollars
to that discussion.
for that education, it's cheaper than the alternative of,
Yeah, I mean, it looks good as it's written there, but how do you know?
you don't.
You don't
Unless
know
Have
what-
someone that goes in,
Yes, so
dives
that's,
into it.
so that's why you need it, I guess, but I mean, like say, HOA, they find you for this, they do this, you can't do this, it can't be so tall, it's got to be, can't be too short, or just, you go nuts.
It's the city of Blackfoot too, or city of Idaho Falls or Polk Town. I
Yeah,
mean, they have the codes, they have regulations.
Yeah.
We all have rules that we have to live by.
Well,
You just keep telling me that I have a rule that I can't drive so fast. And one of these days I might listen to it.
I can go 5 over and I get a ticket. No, that's just the point,
No. And I get,
Yeah.
Well, when we talk about that HOA, I know we're not to the new state law about the smaller, whatever.
Starter home.
But there's something in there about HOAs.
Yeah, it just, we can discuss that. We can amend the agenda, discuss that.
you're not gonna get out of here at 8.
I think you might be referring to the other
You're not.
legislation that was passed on short-term rentals. Saying our ADUs are accessory dwelling units. It talks about HOAs.
I know it's getting in the small or something.
Yeah.
I should print it.
We'll move on. Any other changes that?
Well,
I think
number
before
5.
we- go ahead.
Number 5, maintenance and end of life. Turf shall be maintained in a safe condition. Or what? Damaged or deteriorated turf shall be repaired or replaced. Or what? I mean, where's your enforcement? And who determines whether or not it's in safe condition? Who determines whether or not it's deteriorated or damaged?
That would probably be up to me on the code enforcement. We could add another section in here like we have in other areas. The penalty section that refers back to all the other penalties that are zoning violations that go back to a misdemeanor and account for every day.
Shouldn't that be stated here?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I think we should add that.
we can add a penalty.
Because then it's specifically,
Well,
when
then you
you're
have
reading
teeth.
through it,
Can you
yeah.
take it out
Without
to
it, you
the
have no
dump
teeth.
site, or does it need to be disposed of a different way?
You can dispose of it, like out of the landfill,
Oh, they will.
but you have to take it into a household. It has to go into the more expensive
Section.
disposal type.
Yeah,
You
it
can't,
doesn't.
not like the beans.
Yeah, so far they haven't made like a biodegradable version. It does fill up landfills. That is in on the pros and cons sheet that is in here as well. I think the biggest con about it is that it's hot. It gets hotter than regular grass to the point you can't.
Actually, it depends on the brand.
Depends on the brand.
The one that we used in dog park is cool,
Yeah,
like all the time, it's cool.
all the time.
In our dog park.
No, at the apartment complex in Mount Fawcett, we put it in.
Our dog park has grass, but it also has a horse chest and cheap tree that
Yeah.
poisons to dogs.
Oh, wonderful.
Bring
Also,
your
it
dog
works for me.
But yes, I think we need to add some teeth into it.
All right, we can add a pin in this section, and it'll be
Yeah.
short and brief. It'll
Yeah.
probably just refer back to whatever the section that has the penalty.
I think that's good,
Okay?
but I think that
Take
he's
out
gonna
the
bring it
winter
up, we need
conditions.
to bring in.
Yeah, we need to decide whether or not we think we ought to have a permit.
I'm a yes. I'll tell you that straight up.
Okay, we got a yes here.
Yeah, I agree, because
How else are you gonna?
how is he gonna educate them?
I'm in favor of a permit
And you got
Without
a
a
huge
fee.
one, Travis, I mean.
Without a fee?
without a fee, a required signing of a permit to do this and initial each one of the lines as to the fact that you have read it and understand it as part of the permit, but don't charge a fee for it.
That would
But
be really, that'd
If,
be really,
if the new building inspector has to go out and check on it, that fee helps cover her. however
The
many
thing
ways.
is the time it takes for somebody to review the application has to be paid somehow. They have to pay a fee.
It's, in your case, it's not a 9 to 5, let's just pretend. A 9 to 5 job, you're doing something all the time. This is one worse something.
Yeah, but if there's no fees coming in, you can't pay me to do anything.
Or come to work.
There has to be an income coming in.
It's called taxation, as well as all of the other fees that the city collects, whether it be from gas pumps or from, any other source. There are other fees coming in that pay your wages. And you're here, I'm sorry, I'm not in favor of tagging on all these extra expenses for somebody to do a project, to improve the community, and then tell them it's gonna cost you to improve it. Not only your improvement, but we want to share too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that. And we run off, especially planning and zoning runs off the administrative budget. We don't get the revenue like a building department does that pays off of the value of the project and a sliding scale on how much that is, a percentage of the value of the project for the plan review and for the actual building permit. And then they get to do additional charges for the actual inspections themselves. I don't get
Let's
that.
Let's
part
be
of it.
realistic here. How many people in this town want artificial turf? And how many want real grass? How many permits are you going to get on a residential level for artificial turf that you have to charge a fee and increase the budget for the city to go out and inspect this because you have 3?
I don't know.
Nobody knows.
Until we put the code in there, I don't know how many phone calls I'm gonna get. I don't know how many complaints I'm gonna get. Or how many people actually will install artificial turf.
And I think it depends on how many people see.
Mhm.
The one, ISU put it in, and it looks fantastic. But I don't think, and there's a company out of Hotel that does turf. So I think people might see it and gradually get to it, especially when I hate non-green lawn. And I have some and it drives me nuts because of my pine trees. But if I could do turf, there's a good chance that I would. Because then it's green, I don't have to mow it, don't have to water it. I have to vacuum it, I guess, because of leaves and stuff like
Comb
that.
it, vacuum it.
But and for the first few years, probably not very many, you're absolutely right. But I think it will
At
gain
that
some
point,
momentum.
start charging a fee.
Yeah, well, I
But at
think,
this point,
I mean, we can do it that way, but
I just see people in a different sector. They want fresh flowers. They don't want soap flowers, they want fresh flowers. People want green grass, they don't want turf. So I don't see it being a big issue as a huge demand for your time.
yeah, well, without requiring a permit, at least in a residential, that doesn't.
Well, she's still saying require a permit.
Require a permit, but don't charge a fee for it. And then you can go over it with them and explain to them, this is what's what on the instruction page, have them initial it when they turn it in, that they have read it. And if it becomes a burden, then apply a fee later.
I don't know how many people though, honestly. I mean, I know what you're saying, because it makes me mad when I think that I would have to pay a fee. But I don't know how many people would be honest. It's like, oh, I've read this. I'm not.
But you have a signed form that says they did read it.
But
And if
I,
they don't comply with it, they signed that form.
but
That's a
I'm,
legal binding document.
but I'm wondering if when they go to look at it and it doesn't show a fee, then they'll say, well, you know, there's really nothing that they're gonna do. I mean,
Well, see, that's a buyer beware situation.
I know. So
And if they sign it and, you know, well, you have it on file, you agreed to this, you signed this, then you have teeth that you can go back and enforce them.
But once
But
again,
you-
they're gonna have to have somebody be the person that goes and looks to see, is it done? Did they signed it? Who's gonna be the person that carries that out? We don't have anyone to do that.
What would you think, Audrey, if we prepared the ordinance so that it requires a permit, and let's let the city that knows what they're doing, what it's gonna cost and that sort of thing, make the determination whether there's a fee? Would you feel comfortable doing that?
I'm good either way.
I think that's something that should be determined later when you see how much activity you have on this.
Well,
That's-
I can add this about the fee. We only update our fee schedule once a year. Usually it's right before October, say September or even a month before that. If I miss that deadline, I can't
Add
add it till the next year anyways. And so that does give you a year of sampling to say how many people I talked to or how many people Adriana or Misty talked to on the phone, asking questions about artificial turf.
Right.
Um,
And that's what I'm saying.
We've been here like 3.5 years, nobody's ever asked about artificial turf.
Say it louder.
Then we
No,
don't
I've
worry
been
about
here
it.
3.5 years, I've never had a single question about artificial turf.
So why charge a fee for a permit?
And it may be different now when we're going to be
Right, but,
cut water.
but why don't we go for the year and then reevaluate?
Good idea.
Okay, so I got this right, you want to require a permit with no fee, and then.
Well, that's what I
go
want. That's not necessarily what they want.
At this point, let's just say that we want to require a permit, and then we can do the determination later.
For education purposes.
I'm good with that.
for Education purposes.
And whether we have to do a fee or not in a year that determine that. Go from there, but we're at least requiring a permit
Okay.
to help educate.
Or at least a permit that they can view online, with the code saying, okay, you can at least view this. Now, whether, I don't know, on OpenGov, they can tell us how many views we get on a permit. No, I don't think they can.
It's good, 'cause I-
If they have to apply for a permit, they have to turn it in.
They apply for a
If
permit,
they apply for a permit, they have to turn it in.
okay,
You have it on file that they applied for a permit.
okay,
If you do, like I said earlier, and they have to initial each one of the conditions on that permit, then there's proof that they claim they've read it,
okay.
and that protects the city.
Well, we can put the code in there and that would be in the disclaimer at the bottom saying, I have read all terms and conditions, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
We have that on all our permits that way. So, yeah, we can definitely do that. Yeah, we can sample for a year, or if I get a bunch of phone calls before, which I doubt, we haven't. I believe with Jim though, if we start making people alternate watering days, like we've already had a proclamation for, we're gonna see some lawns burned up, or some upset people because they can't keep a lawn green because they can't have enough water. So they might go to the alternative and put in artificial turf in them areas that they can't keep green.
Okay, so when you explain, if you have to talk to the mayor about this, explain that our concern is that the public is educated before they put it in.
Okay.
We're not trying to increase a cost,
Right.
the permit, we hope it'll be free,
Mhm.
all of that. But we want to make sure that the public's educated before they put it in. So we don't have the issues that Jim was talking.
Because I have no idea.
Yeah.
Or-
And if we do get a signature acknowledging, that not only covers us, but it also covers the homeowner that put it in from any complaints from like a neighbor.
Right.
Saying they put in the turf, and I said, well, he filled out a form, and this is our
Completed a
code.
permit, yeah.
And so your complaint is invalid until it becomes like the definition of a nuisance, if there's odors or anything that need to be handled.
And you can prove that they did it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, can we move to the next item then? I'm trying to get Joanne.
All
Oh,
right.
Not gonna happen. I'm gonna talk a long time about fencing.
All right.
Just because I can.
All right, so we did some changes not too long ago about fencing, and we allowed electric fencing in rural ranch or where they are required to build a fence, commiserate the size and type of animal. Now the mayor, after a couple of cases, the mayor would like to stay out of any civil suits over property disputes. So this new code, the way it's written, will remove the fencing permit and require property owners to follow the regulations. Changes are made to avoid the city being involved in civil disputes. Changes include that fences must be built entirely on the property of the owner, and a building permit is required on fences over 7 feet tall. Aligning with that's just 2016, but it should say 2018 building code.
Okay,
Do
so
I
is
get a
that,
rebate for my permit that I had to pull?
No,
Why not?
This is not in effect.
this is not in effect, and
I don't care. I want a rebate, $25.
25 bucks.
so before you go on, is the issue of the 84 inches, is that something that, because of building codes, then you've got to have a permit?
It actually turns into a building permit, not a fencing permit at that point.
Because of the base that you have to, the
I see
structure
what
that
you
you
have
have
to put
to
in.
have. before
Yeah,
that.
at that time, you start looking at wind loads and design loads.
I just wondered why the difference, why would it matter if it were 6 foot fence or so?
Well, the state and the city has only adopted 2018 for now. I was really surprised that they didn't adopt 2024 during the last legislative session. All developers, contractors, inspectors were all surprised about that. And I was
I'm not.
surprised. You're not? You don't like the 2024 or?
No, we're always 6 to 8 years behind.
Or always
when
behind anyways.
And it's hard to jump from where we're 2018 to 2024. All the codes in between that, to get everybody up to that.
Yeah.
Would be a nightmare and cost prohibitive.
Yeah,
On that
and
stuff.
maintain the application dates of when it went into effect. Okay, this old application date, you're still 2018 and we'll inspect you for 2018 versus just saying, oh, even though you applied back here, we're gonna inspect you in 2024.
It makes it tough. to
Makes
make
it
that
tough.
big of a jump. Yeah, of a jump.
Anyways, all right, the burden, the other part of this is the burden of proving where the property line is located is placed on the person that is the client, not necessarily the builder or the property owner that built the fence.
So does this have anything in it about surveying so that you know where that line really is?
We just require that it's built completely on your property, and part of this code,
People do not know where their property is, Travis.
that's
That's
right.
why
Well,
I'm asking about a survey.
we do mention in there that you can show a shared fence agreement. If you, in this shared fence agreement, you can put a lot of things in there. We're only interested in where you agree where the property line is and that you're allowed to build on the property line. That's the only two parts we care about. Other parts of the shared fence agreement, you can go by color, who's paying for it, if you're paying for half of it, because we don't go by county open range laws or fencing laws, where you face your neighbor fence to the left. We say, if you want to build a fence completely on your property, including the footings, you better know where your property line is. The only thing I don't like, which I think is the downside of this, is it relies on the complainant to hire that surveyor to prove where that property line is before we'll enforce anything. And even at that, we'll just require that the fence be tore down or penalize them for building out the code. We won't go into any civil suits to help prove in a property dispute who has to do what. We just come in and say, the property line has been proven, it's here, it's where the marker is, and it's across that, you didn't have a shared fence agreement. So yeah, we are gonna penalize you every day and cite you saying you built across the property line because the complaint proved where the property line. Now, what I don't like about that, and this is the downside of it, is that say the guy that's building the fence knows exactly where that property line is, but he's gonna put it where he wants to put it. Now, the person that's getting basically their property stolen from them has to go hire the surveyor to have the city do anything about it, or even look at them sideways for that matter, because we want to stay out of the civil liability. It's a civil suit and then property managers, and yeah, they can hire their attorney after they hire their surveyor and sue their neighbor, and probably get a stay of procedure, probably get an order to remove it from a judge, pretty easy. But still, that's all money that would have to be paid out by the person that is probably being wronged, not the actual builder of the fence. But
Yeah, I
that
can
keeps
tell you
the
there's
city out of the civil suit.
There's an Idaho code about property lines and such.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what year this was done in, but it was in Blackfoot, Idaho. And the court case came in. Two landowners, budding landowners, owned lots. They did not fence on the lot line. They fenced at an angle.
Mhm.
It wasn't a matter of, they did still have their full amount of acreage. It was a matter of, this was the boundary line for the property. So it went to court, and the judge ruled that because they had open, peaceable, whatever possession,
Mhm.
however you describe it, that the fence line was now the boundary line of the property, not a legal description as deeded into subdivision by lot and block. And so they ended up taking a triangle up here, giving it to this guy because he had maintained to that fence, and a triangle down here given to this guy because he maintained the fence, and that became their new boundary line. If these people are not getting surveys when they get permits or build a fence or whatever, you're gonna have the same issue. Because they don't know where the boundary lines are.
Okay, so you're against charging $25 or $35 for,
Yes, I know exactly what you're
but
gonna
a
say.
survey's $2,500 to $3,500 on my piece of property.
Right, I understand. I
So,
understand
and-
completely.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is, when you say, it's up to you to make sure that it's on the boundary line, they don't know the boundary line. That's my whole point.
Yeah,
They
but
don't know it.
and our point is, if we don't know where the property line is, we can't even enforce our own code to prove whether that fence is completely on the builder's property or not either.
I agree 100%.
And so that's why it's written this way, to keep us out of the civil suits. So say I went out there and I did my own little guesstimate measurement, I'm not a licensed surveyor, but I went out there and said, I think you built on your neighbor's property. I need you to remove this much fence. Then they can come sue me or the city. I have certain amnesty under the city. They'll sue the city because they have a deeper pocket than mine. But, yeah, that keeps the city out of that kind of lawsuit.
Right.
If I have a surveyor saying, yeah, I put the stake where the line should be and it should run in this heading, then I have something to go by. And then we have something enforceable when we go to court. Because if we have to cite them and penalize them for every count, every day after the notification, then I have to have some evidence, and in my budget, I don't have any money for surveyors.
And I understand that. I'm just saying, to say it has to be built on your property, you are assuming that they know where their property is.
But the thing of it is, if they're gonna put a fence in and they don't know where the property line is, then they run the risk
Exactly,
of having someone,
exactly.
declare that it's not where it should be.
And I tell people all the time when they come in with the same issue, fencing is expensive. Fencing is a lot of work, because a lot of times they plan on doing it themselves. And if you don't know where that boundary line is, and then it comes up that you have to take that fence out, I don't think you want to do that. You might want to get the thing surveyed so you know, put it in the right
And
spot.
That's the point.
and that's kind
But
of.
that's their choice.
Yeah, I had a lady that during our current permitting process applied for a permit, and I call him my pen pal because the property owner is in a prison. He's not allowed to touch a computer. So he wrote me, and I had to graciously ask that lady to remove the fence because he did provide some evidence. It wasn't an actual survey of where the property line is, and I told him, I wrote him back, said, I can ask to remove this fence.
But again, it's a civil case.
Yeah,
It's not a city issue.
well, if
it's a
she
civil
didn't,
case.
she didn't comply to my request. I didn't demand it. I didn't say I'm with the city and I'm gonna cite you, because I knew that it would be a civil lawsuit if we stay out of it.
Exactly.
But I felt that it was because I approved the permit, the way they drew where they said the property line is, I approved it. So I felt some responsibility there, but I had evidence to me saying, okay, this is where you gotta measure from. And this much of this fence is on my property. And so the only legal action that I could have taken in that instance is pull the fencing permit. And say, you don't have a fencing permit anymore because you don't have a shared fence agreement proving where that property line is.
Okay, so once again, permit is required if it's 7 feet or higher.
Mhm.
It's less than 7 feet, no permit is required. So it's no longer an issue. Right?
Well-
Whether it's on their property or wherever it is.
It's an issue if the property owner adjacent to them says it's not in the right place. But it's between the two of them, the
Yeah.
city's
It's
not
civil.
involved.
Yeah,
Exactly.
have anything to do with me, doesn't hit the building code. That can be enforced as a building code.
Okay, so for this to say that it has to be on the property owner's side of the boundary line.
Without a shared fence agreement or get a shared fence agreement.
But the point is, it's moot. I mean, they're not having to pay for a permit. They're putting it wherever they want, and if it's in the wrong spot, it's a civil case. So why are we even worried about it?
But on a 7 foot taller, they have to pull a permit.
Right, how many people can 7 foot fence in there?
Nobody.
Well, you'd be amazed on how many people ask.
Until
they find- well,
they
they-
get a price.
Until they get a price, yeah, because most of your fencing supplies come in a design trying to make 6 foot, because that's what a lot of cities enforce, is 6 foot fence. Or they're trying to be way under the building code requirement, so they can't say, oh, the tops of your posts went over 7 foot, but not your panels.
So isn't this written right now only for those that are over 7 feet? Isn't that what you try to do?
This is written to eliminate the permitting process
For us, less than 7 feet.
for less than,
So all of the instructions that are here apply to those fences that are over 7 feet or over, right?
well, these apply for any fence, whether they're 7 foot or all of them. The requirement for 7 foot means you'd have to have a building permit and provide engineering sheets and data to prove that your fence is built strong enough to meet the design, what do they call it, design standards for this area, for wind and structure. It's not, they don't really look at live load or snow load because of the top of the fence, but they look at wind.
But I think Audrey's point is that We don't need any regulation as far as a 6-foot fence is concerned, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
Because
so,
it's not enforced.
yeah,
We don't need to say it has to be on your property line. We don't need to go into any of that. It's a
Unless-
civil issue.
For the
If they
property
get it
line,
wrong.
yes. Type of fence, like barbed wire, we still have some say about where you can put barbed wire. In the commercial zone only, that's in our code. Like razor wire can only be used at penitentiaries and jails. We can't use that commercially or residentially. Barbed wire can be used for livestock, but it can't be used in town as a residence and stuff like that. Them codes still apply,
Yeah,
and
right.
the setback requirements for a fence, for a non-visual 4-foot fence or a visual 3-foot fence in the front setback of the lot still apply.
but there's nothing in there to hold them to that. Other than you going out there and policing it.
Yeah, or if that's the complaint that I get. If it's not a property line dispute, I still have to go out and enforce the safety triangle or the setback regulation.
Okay,
But if you
we're talking 2 lots, with a line down the middle, as they were surveyed. We're talking an individual coming in and building a fence where he thinks that line is. It's not the city's problem.
Not the problem, not
It
the,
shouldn't even be in here that you have to build it all on your property and not on the neighbor's property, because you don't know where the boundary line is.
So
So
you're,
take it out.
so you're saying the very first statement in this, under 11.8.7, all fences must be built in the property boundaries of the owner. You want to take that out?
Unless you have proof of where the line is, how can you enforce that?
we can enforce it only by making either one or the other, the builder or the one filing the complaint prove that's there. And then even then, yes,
We're back to
we're
the
not gonna
civil
get
case.
into the civil case.
We're back to the civil case where the fence line was the accepted boundary line for many years. New landowner came in and said, nope, that's not my boundary line, I will not fence it. That's for the judge to determine. That's not for the city to determine. So I don't think there should be anything in there at all about it has to be within the property owner that's building the fence.
Well, I think it needs to be in there so that future fences don't have to go and find out from a judge. If they build it completely on their property, then there is no civil case to
You
go
can't
in.
determine that without a survey.
And you can't determine that, without a survey, but we gotta have it in there just to prevent future issues.
Are there any other suggested changes to this that anyone
I don't
has?
like your barbed wire.
You don't like barbed wire?
B1A, at 84 inches above the ground for security. It starts at 72. It's a 6-foot chain link fence with 3 lines of, barbed wire.
Okay.
That's the standard in the industry,
And to start at what height again?
6 foot.
6 foot, 72 inches,
That's
around
correct.
84.
I mean, you're a few inches above that by the time you put your first strand on, but it's not 84. By standard, I mean, that's a special order chain link fence to get to an 84 inch. It's not standard in the industry.
So you would just delete what's in yellow there? to make
I would
that-
take it back to the 72
Right
inches.
back to the
Right.
72.
Yeah,
And so could you make that change?
I'm just telling you from someone that's put in 5,000 or 6,000 feet of it.
So that's standard.
Yeah, 6-foot chain link fence is standard.
Okay.
4, 5, and 6, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the standards, so.
Okay.
And then you get into different gauges and stuff like that. 6 foot's the normal, and then they put a 3 strand barbed wire above that for security.
Yeah, I think they just changed that, trying to follow.
The 84 inches
74,
above
yeah.
that, yeah. But you're about 84 inches once you put those strands in there.
Put the strands on there. I think, I don't know, I have to talk with our building official to see because I think the building code is just written based off the height. It's not saying, okay, this is a chain link fence, so it shouldn't have any wind. I think it's going right off the standards, and if it's over 7 foot or.
But it's
7 foot
still a 6-foot fence. Just
6
because you've added the barbed wire up on top,
Mhm.
it doesn't increase your fence. I mean, it increased the overall height, but it's not classified a fence.
Well, yeah,
That's your security part.
That's not part of the fence.
Not the way that I would read the code.
Well, it's definitely, so you
It's
can,
interpretation.
yeah, you can slip through them barbed wire strands than the full-on chain link. Yeah, I can review that with the building official.
Let's do that.
Okay.
I think that needs to be changed.
Any other suggested changes?
It's the only one that I noticed earlier.
Everybody feels comfortable with there not being a permit for less than 7 feet?
I still have an issue with all fences must be built within the property boundaries of the owner. It sounds great on paper, but I don't see how.
I think that's all it is. It just sounds great on paper, just for some guidance. I don't think it's enforceable. I think you're absolutely right on that.
I think-
Because
I do
when you
think we
issue
should
the
leave it.
permit, you have no idea if it's on the boundary line or if it's within the properties.
Yeah, well, when it, currently as it is permitted, I just pull the permit if there's ever a dispute, or if there's not a shared fence agreement. We just pull the permit and try to wish them the best of luck with the civil case.
Again, you're stating though that it has to be this, and where's the proof? There is no
Well,
proof.
currently I put the burden on the builder, but this takes it off the builder, put it on the complaint. And,
Which I agree with you. I think that's kind of wrong.
yeah, I don't,
Should be the person.
well, that keeps people from just bullying other people and saying, I'm just gonna build this fence a little bit over because I need 5 foot setback from the next project. Or something
And
like
like mine, when I put mine in, we held it about 8 inches into my property, even though I had shared fence.
that.
But it's because of the roots and stuff like that of my trees, it just wasn't going to work out.
So, yeah, so what if that
Or
were
I
the
had
other way? Say there was a tree on the
I
property
wouldn't
line,
have put it,
and, yeah,
I
some people would go
yeah.
on the neighbor's side, right?
And mine was not, I put mine, because I'm the one that was pulling the permit, putting the fence in.
Mhm.
Even though he was paying for a portion of it.
Yeah.
I didn't like, I'll give him those few inches.
Yeah.
Not working.
But I've had fence complaints come in because they didn't like this type and style of the fence that was put in. There was a very cool ornamental fence, had a little scenery cut in it with a CNC machine. Neighbor didn't like it because her little dog could get through it. And I'm like, well, you might just build your own fence that commiserates the size and type of your animal.
You can't agree on a fence, then just build your own.
Yeah.
All right, so,
Duly noted, Audrey. Duly noted. All right, traffic study?
Traffic study, so due to certain subdivision applications that has come through recently, it has been by the advice of the mayor and also the street superintendent to put in these requirements. This is a way for us to be able to enforce it and not be considered a taking or an unjustified condition to be put on a development. If we have it in our code at the time of the application date, they have to say, yeah, it was in our code when you applied, so you have to abide by this. So if you look about page 3, it used to say in
Page
our,
3 after what, I'm sorry.
so you got after, it says
H.
12.2.4, submittal of subdivision application. About page 3,
Right, table 2?
table 2.
Okay,
You'll see what's crossed out or what's checked if they're, you used to say if required, and that meant if required by the director that is assigned to that duty. So this is gonna say, meets requirements of 12.2.9, which is a new chapter where we're putting this. The title of it is Establishing Traffic Level of Service Standards and Traffic Impact Analysis Requirements. The important part of this and the details is down under C, under applicability. The important thing is that this will be in all medium density residential and higher. So that'd be MDR1, MDR2, HDR1, and HDR2. The development, if the development has 100 or more dwelling units in it, or the development is 7 acres gross area or more. That's a big trigger right there. The rest of these triggers are following the Idaho Department of Transportation suggestions. They have to follow these if they were exiting onto a state highway. So this is kind of the inspiration of this. We're following their lead of 100 dwelling units, whether it's on a state highway or on a public road. And then if you take your 100 dwelling units and divide that by the allowed density of MDR1, you get 7 acres. So that's why we have the 7 acres. So if we have an application come in and they're gonna do medium density or higher, and they're gonna do more than 100 units or more than 7 acres, it's an automatic trigger to require them to do a traffic study for that development. And
Does the
it's
planned unit development fall under this too, Travis?
it doesn't say planned unit development or regular subdivision. It's left open that way.
You need to add those.
We want to add those.
Absolutely.
We left them open just so that we can apply it to either one. But we can add them.
And you'll want to fix under A.
Okay.
There we got purpose.
Purpose, and then just, well, we'll cross out the big purpose and move the I up to A.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
It has purpose, and the purpose.
There you go.
We will, we'll move it clear up.
And did we say there were 2 different kinds of traffic studies? Did
So,
you say something?
We're requiring a traffic study, not a traffic model. There's a difference between the two. A traffic study, you go out and do physical counts. And we mentioned in here that we're gonna go by the level of service, or LOS, as it is in highway traffic standards manual.
You got highway capacity manual,
Yeah, highway
published by
capacity.
transportation resource,
Yeah.
research.
So that is the standard that every engineer goes by. That's what Idaho Department of Transportation goes by. We require a registered engineer to do this study as well. That's up with PUD. So the first 3 definitely will trigger. The other 2 would be hard to prove, not unless, there's, not unless you can say, yeah, we believe that there's more than 100 peak hour trips already going through a certain intersection. But the first I through triple I would be enough to trigger a justified traffic study.
And the only reason why you included 4 and 5, Roman numeral 4 and 5, is because that's in the Idaho code.
Yeah, that's in the ITW policy, or it's also in the highway manual as well.
Any changes, suggested changes, any concerns about it?
And when you do that professional engineering study, is it somebody that the city?
No, the developer will hire them themselves, and it would be, I can make an addition in here, third party or something to that nature, other than the engineer that is over the project. Something like that. I can talk.
Like an independent
study,
I
study?
believe it should be.
I think so too.
non-biased.
Well, I can talk to Garrett and see the definitions, the legal definitions of third party and independent.
Well, whatever he says, you understand
Yeah,
what we're getting at,
yeah,
that we don't think the engineer of the project ought to be doing it.
yeah. Well, I think third party better describes that.
Okay.
Because you can say, yeah, this firm that's doing their development also has this qualification. And according to his engineering standards that he has to follow, that makes him independent enough
I see.
to be
I'm
able.
fine with that.
That's too close to being biased to me. If we had a third party who is a third party to the developer or third party to the engineering firm that does the development, then they're only getting paid to do the traffic study. And their approval or disapproval doesn't determine the next paycheck like the developer to the developer.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, then we'll lay that one to bed.
Okay.
Okay, you want to talk to us about planned unit development?
Yes, this is a requirement. The chairman has to be put on the agenda. I didn't have a lot of time to highlight the sections that we needed to talk about.
Let me explain, since I did ask this to be on. I wasn't able to attend the city council meeting where they talked about Highland Hills, so but I did watch it. Actually, two versions of it. One that was done by one of the opponents that was on Facebook, and then I watched the official one for the city. And one of the concerns that was raised, and it was a concern that I had, and I think some of the rest of you had, as we were evaluating this, was how loose the description of open spaces was, both for the PUD and other developments, right? That you'll recall that he had a little piece over here, and a little piece here, and a little piece there, and that was enough for that planning unit development to go forward, right?
Yeah.
There was enough
A
open
little over an
space.
acre
Exactly,
total.
yeah.
1.13 if I remember correctly.
And so
Make lot 19.
my question is, or my issue is that I think we ought to put something in the ordinance that tightens that up a little bit so it doesn't allow for that. Does that make sense?
Why would you word that? though?
Now, that is, that's why we have Travis
That's
here.
why you have the attorney on retainer all the time.
There you
I
go.
agree with that. I mean, the other one with that one is one of the units or one of the pieces of property that they were counting as
Part of the open
common
space.
area
Yeah.
was completely behind units. So you have to go through people's yards
Mhm.
to get to that piece of property. And that was the biggest one. That was a little over a half acre.
Yeah.
Which
Well-
And you also had the ground that was left over
on
in
the
the
corners.
strange
Yeah.
shaped pieces in each of the blocks.
Yeah, my
Let your
feeling is
children
that,
play in that when the cars are driving by?
my feeling is if we're gonna have open space, it ought to be open space that's actually usable.
Yeah.
By all.
For some kind of purpose.
Yeah.
Like for a little kiddie gym or whatever,
Or
Instead of
Frisbees
just
on.
what's left
Yeah,
over.
right.
And that's,
So-
I will say, because I went to that meeting.
Oh, did you?
I did.
That's
A little annoyed about it, but.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the people on the board were like, oh, well, there's room behind the units that someone could play Frisbee, that should count as open space. Well, it doesn't count as open space. That's their property, whether they're renting it or they own it. And they back to the other one, but they counted that. And I can tell you which one said it.
Yeah.
Which pissed me off because that's not true, but they're like, well, that should be plenty, and so they're like, let's pass it.
There were several things that were said in there that were not true and that I was displeased about. Totally agree.
At least you
So
didn't have to
open
step by the
space-
developer that bitched and moaned the whole time anybody brought anything up.
Oh, really? Well, anyway, do you all feel comfortable with that? That we
Yeah,
ought to-
absolutely. Just, I mean, it sounds like, so you got open space here, but as long as that conglomerate equals X amount, then we get.
Right,
Yeah, it's,
Well, and like I agree with him, some of them are next to the road.
Yeah.
Some of them are next to the ditch,
yeah.
and
It was leftover space that they were counting.
yeah,
Exactly.
But that's the way the ordinance is written, right?
Oh.
There's nothing, it just says, well, you
It
can
doesn't
see.
tie it down.
And it doesn't get included within the lot. It was being transferred
Mhm.
ownership.
oh,
The guy on the end,
Yeah.
he may have so much space in his lot now, but technically he should have all of this too,
Mhm.
which becomes his yard,
Well,
Kind of.
not the homeowners association.
he pays his HOA fees and they do the maintenance on the grass.
You're
The
talking about
point is,
these little
everybody in
pieces
there's
here,
paying
right?
HOAs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it only benefits
So like
the guy
this-
who has the lot next
this one
to
right
it.
here,
So why are all
that's
these other
the
people
biggest piece
paying
that they have. have.
To
Right.
maintain
And then-
the lot.
Yeah,
That
and
guy's
then that would, I think that's a retaining water.
Well, the HOA fees pay all the, cover all the common areas,
This
the
one.
HOA, no matter,
I think,
no matter where it is, if it's right behind this guy's
yeah,
place.
this one,
Um,
This one.
so with the PUD, they only had to create a lot the size of,
Well, this-
for individual ownership.
These units.
They didn't include any acreage with that lot, other than the footprint of this, of the one unit of the townhome.
And then they call it common area.
And then they called it a company.
So let's look real quickly, if you don't mind, then we'll finish this off. If you look at 11.6A5, land unit development. And then turn the page over to section 4, where it says private open space. Everybody with me now?
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay, this is how it reads now. All residential plan developments on less than 1 acre shall provide each dwelling unit with a minimum of 100 square feet of usable private open space. And then it says the Planning and Zoning Commission should evaluate each project on its own merits and allow variations to the open space standard where it can be shown that the provided space meets the intent and purpose of this title.
So we've kind of tied our hands the way this is written already.
Yeah.
I would like to say something, the Idaho State statute on planned unit development says the planned unit development may be identified in a local ordinance as an area of land which a variety of residential, commercial, industrial, and other land uses are provided under a single ownership or control. Planned unit development ordinances may include, but are not limited to, requirements for minimum area, permitted uses, ownership, common open space, utilities, density, arrangements of land uses on a site, and permit processing. So it does say that you can put in our city code, it says very specifically, common open space. So we can change this without any other requirements from the state. I think that's very important to state here. On this section that you read just recently, we are tying our hands on developments less than 1 acre. Now, if you take Island Heights, for example, the whole thing was 18 acres. Minus the single-family dwelling units, is still like 15 or something like that. I can't remember exactly, 12, I think. 12 acres
I
for,
thought it was 13 point something.
yeah, 13, something like that. So in that case, this didn't apply because it was more than 1 acre. Now, we can change this and say any acreage, any project, we're gonna require a minimum for each dwelling unit, minimum of 100 square feet. Or we can increase the square footage.
I'm wondering if there isn't something that could be said about, and maybe we say that with the Planning and Zoning Commission should evaluate each project. You know, that like we have been saying about a little area to throw a frisbee, is that open space? You know, can we say something about contiguous space?
Contiguous space.
You follow what I'm saying?
I think that's
Yeah.
a little more appropriate, I mean, and not trying to beat the horse with the one that we're just had heartburn on.
Right.
But none of those areas are very usable. I mean, even to play frisbee on. I
Right.
mean, if you have a little 2, 3, 4-year-old, you could, set up a perimeter type thing and keep them back there so they play a little bit, but you couldn't play soccer on it, you couldn't play flag football on there. I mean, the biggest one is you have to go through everybody's property to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, welcome.
Well, I like the design of, the
Yeah.
most current design of Honey Brook 3. They have a big open space.
Yeah.
It's dedicated to that open space. It's
Yeah.
not a retention pond, stuff like that. But it is a planned unit development with a private way, road in it. I think that is a better example of a better design.
I agree with that.
I think it's even better than the design of townhomes at Cromwell. Because townhomes at Cromwell, even though they have that big open square in the middle, half of it is a retention pond. Who wants to play in a retention pond if it gets full?
I've been driving through there a lot because I
Yeah.
live right on the street.
Yeah, and then the other half is where they're gonna put their swimming pool and their their little clubhouse. So,
So that's what they're doing, the clubhouse.
yeah, that's a clubhouse to go with the swimming pool, so, and it'll have the equipment that maintains the pool, like the filter system, and pumps, right, like that would be in that building.
Well, let's see, you might want to look at ordinances in, other cities.
Other cities.
To see what you can come up with, but I think you understand the intent
Yeah,
that we're after.
Yeah.
well, I believe we should take out, the 1 acre
Uh-huh.
and just say, cross out on less than 1 acre.
Right,
And say, all residential planned developments shall provide each dwelling unit with a minimum of 100 square feet of usable private space. I think we can, so that's like these tables set up right here. 10 by 10 is 100 square feet. That's all you get for one dwelling.
So
So,
that's private
and-
open space.
and, well, this is common. We're talking about common, well, this is private.
Yeah, this says private open space.
And that's why it probably
Which-
starts
That's
with 1 acre.
there, those backyards
Yeah.
of the one, I mean, that's why I'm like, you can't count that as common open space, that's private
Mhm.
open space.
But this is on less than 1 acre, that's why.
yeah, so this little corner right here is the backyard to 1, 2, 3, 4.
That one's their retaining pond,
Okay,
that little triangle right there.
put that little thing right there.
Yeah.
That's the backyard, all those units right there. I mean,
Yeah, it's the side where they can go and play.
Well,
And
we
look-
can add another section possibly for common open spaces. And my suggestion would be to maybe say, I'm not gonna say the size of the football field, like 25 by 100 yards. That's a little big.
Right.
So say if you did 25 by 50 yards.
Could we say something like proportionate to the size
Size
of
of
the,
the unit.
size of the.
Okay.
Again, that's subject to
That's-
opinion.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Is that right?
It's subject.
But you have, but I
don't
think we
disagree.
need to say it has to be somewhat big because
Enough to be used.
there's gonna,
If you wanna play frisbee, you
well,
gotta have
and there's gonna be a lot of kids.
50 yards.
You don't want them playing in the street. I don't want them over by the ditch.
Mhm.
So if they have to give up space for a big space.
Well, I think we ought to have a requirement that a certain amount of common open
it
space
must be contiguous.
must be, well, not so much contiguous, must be at least this standard size.
Yeah.
So they can go to that ballpark or that basketball court.
And I think we need to add some wording of that it has to be accessible, easily accessible, and something not through
Someone's yard.
someone's
Have
yard.
you ever been to Pheasant Ridge Apartments in Shelby? It's the ones that you could see off the interstate at I-84 as you get off I-15. If you look at that development, their common space is right in the middle of all the apartments. Kids don't have to, the ones on the very outside do have to cross the street.
Yeah.
But 80% of the units don't have to cross the street. And there's a basketball court there, as well as a beach volleyball pit. And then over in another side area, there's a putting green, actually, with a smaller child park over there. So if we look at maybe the standard size of, say, a basketball court, maybe full size.
Why don't you do some investigating,
Yeah.
what you see elsewhere, and bring us some, language, and then we'll start to work on it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Throw more on your plate, Travis.
Well,
You're getting like,
I was getting a little light, that's why you guys get a Tuesday off.
Travis, you want me to do that? You want me to look at like
Well,
standard size of basketball court, soccer fields, whatever else, just kind of throw all those measurements together?
what I think we should be looking at is, as maybe planned unit developments. So like every county parcel viewer, you can go in and look at approved plats. So I would like to go, say I'm St. Pheasant Ridge. I'll go into Bannock County's approved plats and see what their plat looks like. Maybe they'll even have on that plat a breakdown of what their common areas are. That is a pretty cool way to see what works or what's good. We'll put it up on the big screen.
and what some people have been doing.
And so what people have been doing that looks good.
Do you want those to be recent, they recorded subdivisions
Um,
or PUDs?
well, I like to look at what I like, not how
The
the
reason I'm
age of the
saying
development.
recent is because they may have put in requirements that now have to be met, whereas the older plats didn't have those requirements that, you know.
Well, it could have been the developer's choice too.
Yeah.
To appease the approvers, saying, if I think this needs to be approved, and I don't, and I want to make it easy to go through, so I have less resistance, right? That I don't have 12 people turning in appeals the day after we kind of say, yeah, we'll approve this, you know?
It also, I mean, if they have good open space or good amenities for those tenants,
Yeah, good amendment.
they're more likely to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, I will look at other cities' codes, even bigger city
Yeah.
codes. But I would also like to look at a couple of developments. I'm not biased toward Pocatello or Chubbuck, it's just where I live and I go through
We don't
them
hold that
places.
against you.
You don't hold that against me, thank you. But I do see, where I live, I do see projects I like, and I'd like to bring them to. I'm not against maybe taking a trip to Idaho Falls and looking around, but I'd want to look at their parcel viewer and look at my prospects.
Have some ideas of what might be there, what you might.
I mean, even
No,
our former mayor Carroll, when he was considering a splash pad, he drove all over the place. He went to Idaho Falls, Chubbuck, Pocatello, looked at every splash pad he can look at.
That's because they were in the state south at the same time.
Probably, but he did it while he had to go to meetings in them towns as well. And so I would like to look around a little bit, not only at code, but at projects at work. Maybe on my near map, I can take measurements from satellite photos. And if they don't give the actual written data that I need, I can sample my own and get an idea, come close enough with the satellite photo. I also would like to point out in your documentation on the document, there's 12.7-2. This is part of the subdivision application section. If you go to the back page on the section labeled H.
Yeah,
That's pretty
That's pretty,
loose.
that is about as broad as you can make it and still say you said something about it, right? Maybe if we can add in here, retention ponds don't count. Or
Let's work on
discount retention ponds. Is there any features that you think that couldn't double as common areas?
That could not.
That could not, like a
I
retention
think a
pond?
retention pond definitely does not.
Yeah, because it could get swampy if the water don't evaporate out or soak into the ground in enough time. Yeah, in my opinion, it creates a great big mosquito nest anyways. No one wants to play in a mosquito nest.
Did they have a place that they said was gonna be green that, was gonna have their pumps or something on, or?
Oh, they had pumps that was gonna be going into the ditch, but it wasn't part of it. It was gonna have to be in the commons area, so it could be the HOA's bill. And they're.
Cause I noticed on the opposite of where they go in, right over here, they had that green patch. And I thought you said they were putting a building of some sort.
Well, I think they have to put a building for like storage or to shelter the pumps from weather. Make it look nice, or at least a privacy wall, so you're not looking at.
Well, you wouldn't want
people's
kids
house.
to play there.
Or, yeah, to keep kids out of them, so they're not playing with the electrical, like cutting their hands off on the impeller or something like
And that,
that. Or getting sucked in because they're swimming in the canal.
that's not,
Well, I've seen some bad stuff. I moved enough pipe. I've seen enough ducks get sucked in and trip the breaker.
you mentioned Honeybrook, where's that at?
Honeybrook 3 is off of Cromwell Lane. It's just been recently approved.
No, it's off board.
Lawrence?
Honeybrook 3 is off board. Cromwell is Townsville's code.
Yeah, Lawrence.
Lawrence?
Yeah, it's right on the east side of the city limits. We had to annex it in.
Okay.
There's a lot right here and a lot.
Yeah.
This is the.
Oh, that's the one off the back.
Yeah. Yeah, off the back.
Two, yeah. Oh, that's gonna put
This one
there.
was,
Yeah.
is that here or where are you?
Yeah,
See the yellow space there?
Yeah, see the yellow space.
yeah,
That's Honeybrook 3.
okay. That's
The
good.
one just north of it's Honeybrook 2 and across the street's Honeybrook.
That's a good spot, you see, that's a good project.
They annexed it in.
Well, I like it
And so
for
this
open,
spot,
open spaces.
Okay.
You said it's good.
They have quite a bit of open space on that.
That's the open space right there, that's the biggest.
And yes.
And didn't you say you had to walk across somebody's property to get to it?
Oh, that big spot, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
three.
No, 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 we're talking about,
It's two sides.
Height.
Yeah, it's behind two,
Hey, you know
two
what?
rows of complexes.
You quit us?
I didn't quit you.
Quit us?
I
You quit us, so we
side
don't
voted.
care anymore.
Not only
Side vote.
is she an inspector, but she's the exalted ruler.
Oh, stop it. Can we not discuss that on the meeting?
She is actually the exalted ruler of Elmsville.
Of the Elks or with the Doves?
She's the drafted.
Whoa.
Can we adjourn before we discuss this over, you know?
No.
All right,
Transcribe.
I just wanted to alert everybody, I think everybody's aware that we have in our packet a meeting for the 24th. Yeah, 28th, okay, it's
You
canceled.
didn't get one, Steve, I forgot.
So our next meeting will be the second week in May.
Didn't want you to
I
feel-
have just one item, one quick item.
Yeah.
Not much.
Hey, you see, you're leaving and you
I
stopped
know.
us.
One quick item. The Rich Street that we wanted to rename. I finally got a suggestion. I didn't get it from a property owner. I got it from the Bingham County Archives. Suggestion is Buchanan Street. Osmond Buchanan used to own a house in that neighborhood. And the developer that developed that area built his house for him. That is the suggestion, Buchanan. We don't have any other names called Buchanan. The original developer, we already have a street named after him already. But this was,
From a four-letter word to a long-letter word.
well, Buchanan ain't that much longer.
And they don't know how to spell it.
But every single envelope you fill out, you've got to add all those extra letters.
Hey, I have to do Schnittgen already.
But I want to put it out there, that recommendation for Buchanan for that name, and get some feedback from you guys. So
I think that's great.
I don't live there.
I'm just glad that I only have 4 letters on my street.
All right, we'll put that on a future.
Okay, it
agenda.
sounds stupid right here, but didn't we have a president named
Is it
Buchanan?
you?
Yes,
You
we
was
did.
there?
Yes, we
That's
changed.
I thought we did, but I
James
wasn't sure.
Yeah, so that's.
It sounds
I
very
live about
presidential.
Chris-
Well,
What's the name of
This
your
Osmond
street?
Buchanan was the postmaster of Blackfoot for several years, up to 1932, I think. He did about an 8-year stint in there, also a church leader,
I live up just-
and he died of a heart attack in his backyard. That's-
Clean up those envelopes.
He's a prominent figure in the city.
Yeah, I was a
I-
Okay, and is there a second to that motion?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, no, I don't want those.
You've already missed your show,
I know, I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
What's your
I
show?
get it.
she said she
Misty's
recorded
pushing
it.
it.
Oh, feels bad.
What's your
Oh, we
show?
haven't canceled it, we
The
haven't
boys.
adjourned yet.
No, he,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, we did.
Oh, we did that?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you
8:43.
were talking about Buchanan.
No, I was reading sign, body language over here and stuff.
Right, good Bob. I think she has the highest bar tab.